Alright everyone, we're back here with part 2 of building this concrete airbase. And yeah, this time we're going to paint what we built. So here it is, it's all dried and hardened after 24 hours. And we're going to use some of the Ammo MIG dark streaky grime is what I end up using on this. And I had a selection of stuff to try. Again, this is the first time I've done this for concrete, so I just kind of winging it here. So I put a little bit in a dish, thinned it out with about 60% thinner, and I'm gonna just try and make it look a little real. So I'll put some in between the cracks between the concrete pads. And you can see it's sort of spreading out a little bit, but it's also spreading along the top, which is okay. It's going to add to the heavily weathered effect. And I didn't want it to go too far in, and you'll see later that after doing part of this, there's some tide lines that appear. So a tide line is where the paint and the carrier goes out and stops at a specific spot and leaves sort of like a little line across. And I didn't like those tide lines at all. You can see how it just comes to a hard stop, and then when it dries, you got these little lines. That's called tide lines. So I got a little bit of thinner, some enamel thinner, and just trying to remove some of these tide lines to blend them in a little bit more so they're not so harsh. And it doesn't look right when it's hard like that. We're trying to do a kind of weathered and worn effect instead of having that. So you just carry on. I was using some X20, some Tamiya X20 enamel thinner, not X20A, but the enamel thinner, and just using it to brush it to clean up the tide lines, to soften them up, spread them out a little bit. And you'll see how later on in the video we're going to add some more color and other things to this, but just going to speed it up because this would be awful boring to watch the whole thing through at real time. This was better part of a day I ended up spending on this. Well worth it. I can use this base on a whole lot of things, but here I'm using a little thinner solution than I was before. This is probably about 10% actual dark streaky grime compared to before, and it seemed to flow just a little bit better. It wasn't quite so heavy. Probably the brush I wasn't using was that great either. It's not an expensive brush. I didn't want to use an expensive brush on this because, again, it's the first time and I didn't want to didn't want to ruin anything. But here we go, just fast time it through, and yeah, we're just carrying along, getting through all these separations in the concrete pads, and yeah, it's a good thing I sped it up because it'd be pretty boring to watch in real time. But again, it didn't take too long. I highly recommend anybody try this out because yeah, it was a little bit enjoyable trying to work through things and making something like this. So here again, I'm using this brush with a lot of X20 thinner, the enamel thinner, to try and get rid of the hard tide lines that are on it. You can see up in the upper portion how much it's spread out, and that's a bit of a mistake, but I'm going to leave it there anyway because it's going to look good in the end anyway, because this is meant to be a well-used piece of concrete pad. Here I decided to change brushes. I went with a really hard stippling brush instead, and this got me a better result. It was with the thinner, it was easy to dig into the rough concrete surface and blend it a lot better. So this is definitely, this is the kind of brush you want to do if you're gonna do this kind of thing, in my humble opinion. If you got something different that you'd like to share with me, please leave it in the comments. And just go over everything to try and get rid of any hard tide lines, because you can see a few there and it just doesn't look right. It's just like somebody put paint on there, and that's exactly what happened. So we're just blending it into the concrete cracks. give it a spin around, keep going at it. I used a lot of the thinner on that, but now I want to make it look a little less even, so I want to highlight some of the corners in that. So I'm using, again, going through and using some, this is a Mr. Hobby weathering. It's a dark weathering stuff, pretty much the same type of thing as the dark streaky grime, or to me a panel liner. It's an enamel, and I've thinned it out a little bit and just dabbing it in to certain spots that I want to highlight. And then what I'm going to do is just use a little thinner to spread it out a little bit further, just to make some variation between the lines, because I don't want it to look all the same. So you can see it just creates areas that are darker than others, adds some variation so it doesn't look false, I guess. I don't know. More natural. So I'm just using the thinner again to spread it out. Being more judicious this time than what I did first of all. And again, bringing the hard stipple brush back in to kind of work it so we don't get any of those tide lines. I'm gonna touch up the cracks that I had made in the concrete when I was laying it down and setting it. So just to bring those out, have those as a nice visual feature as well. So I'm using the same kind of technique. It's gonna be a little overdone, but once we get to putting a little bit of thinner in there and that stippling brush, it blends it and it looks really nice. It looks like just a natural crack. Continue on with the corners basically and some of the other lines just to make them a little more pronounced. Add a little more visual interest, not quite all the same. And then I'm going to use some, to me, a panel liner black just to super highlight the cracks, make them really stand out. A couple of little corners too, just to make them a little stronger, a little variation. Again, add to it, building out what we did before, and again bringing the stippling brush back with enamel thinner. Now here I'm using the Mr. Hobby, some of the weathering, the tan weathering enamel, and I'm just dotting randomly on the on some of the squares and using the stippling brush with some enamel thinner to spread it out and blend it in, just to give it a little more warmth to it. And then after I went across the entire board with that, I'm going to use some of these gray Tamiya panel liners. So this is an opposite, sort of not an opposite tone, but it's a different tone than we've been in the browns and very dark browns, tan for a while. So this is going to add a little gray to it, and it's going to make it look a little more interesting visually. And I'm just dotting it on using the stippling brush again, just to kind of blend it in patches. There's no rhyme or reason to how I did this. It's just I'm just doing this to, again, add that extra color depth to the actual texture and the surface of the base. And each square gets its own treatment. And you can kind of see from left to right the little difference in color tone, and visually in person too, you can see how it adds more and more depth to the base. Again, there's no rhyme or reason, just kind of adding it in, moving it around, not covering the entire square. It's just something random to add that extra color tone. Alright, now with all the colors done, I'm going to add a little spots of grass in some of the corners and little bits that's chipped out. I didn't want to go crazy on this because I've not done this yet, but so I got a little bit of PVA glue, and had some brown grass that I had kicking around from way long ago, and just literally just sprinkled it on those spots that I wanted to have, the little bits of tufts of grass coming through the concrete and the separations and whatnot, and just making sure that all the visible PVA was covered, and then I give it a little shake so everything gets in there, and we're just gonna basically dump it over, and then once that's done, dump it, and then I'll wait just a little bit, just enough for the PVA to dry, and then just brush off the excess. Now what I'm going to do is do some splattering, as if there was some servicing done on aircraft close by, or some maintenance guys spilled something or whatnot. It's the good old toothpick and a brush method, where you're just flicking the paint onto the surface. Just looks like spatters and spills. And I'm using Tamiya black and Tamiya brown panel liners for these. I had a really good time making this base. It was a good learning experience for me, and I did this over the course of 2 days, and I'm very happy with the way it turned out. If you have something in your repertoire that you do, or you can add to this, please let me know, and give it a try, because I had a great time with this. And if you like this, please let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Go over to Patreon, support me over there, trying to build stuff up on that side. And you can always buy me a coffee, because hey, I love a coffee. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Ciao.